I'm so excited to have with me today on the show a friend of mine. I actually met him because I attended one of his talks, and then it was so cool. A little while later, he attended one of my talks. Marc Rodriguez is with us today. He's the CEO of Manifest Fitness Institute. And I mean, there's so much I could say about him. I'm not reading a bio. This is just from my heart. I mean, he's got a ton of energy, enthusiasm, passion. I don't always love the word expert, right? We're all growing, but he's got a lot of good experience in leadership, culture building, um, just figuring it. We'll talk a little bit about figuring stuff out. We'll talk about that. Well, Marc, just want to thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Billy, for having me. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah,
Energy matches energy. Trust me.
that's right. That's right.
Your energy was infectious as well. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think it's gonna bring a lot of value. I always people ask me like, what's the podcast like? Who's the listener? And it's financial is how I started, but the cool part is that finances touches every other area. Like you can't talk about finance without talking about leadership, without talking about culture building, without talking about figuring things out. Right? If there's any place to figure stuff out, it's financially. So I'd love to start. You have a really unique background, which I think has served you incredibly well. I know it's a kind of a broad question, but if you could just share, like, yeah, where is Marc Rodriguez from?
Yeah. I'll keep it short and sweet because I could go real long-winded, and we only have a short period of time. So,
Yep.
uh, I'm Marc Rodriguez. I was born in the Bronx in New York City, and then my parents moved us to Mesa, Arizona. So we went from the projects in the Bronx to the suburbs in Mesa, Arizona. I will tell you that's my first fitfo moment. So we'll speak about that later on.
Yeah.
But then I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I was also a father 2 weeks after I graduated high school to a baby boy who has special needs. So he was born with Down syndrome. And so 4 months later, actually a month later, I enlisted after he was born. And then 4 months or 3 months after that, I was able to go to San Diego, MCRD, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, joined the Marine Corps, spent 21 years in the Marine Corps. And during that time, I did everything and anything you could think of. My actual job, so to speak, quotation mark, was food service. So I was into cooking and things of that nature. But as I got into my later years, it was more logistics. And I was also, I held a lot of instructor billets. So whether it was physical training instructor, Staff NCO Academy, which is for Staff NCO, Staff Non-Commissioned Officers. It's a higher level of professional military education, so I was an instructor for them. I was also a Marine Corps martial arts instructor and an instructor trainer. I was a drill instructor, so I trained recruits in boot camp for 3 years. So I've done a lot of instructor type billets, a lot of standing up in front of people, platform instruction, things of that nature. Really big on education and always advancing yourself and self-improving. And I retired in 2017, and I was that veteran that did not know what to do next. I spent 21 years from 17 to 38. What am I going to do next? So I got into the personal training world. I became a personal trainer, became a personal trainer on my own as an independent contractor out of self-made training facility in California. I climbed the ladder with self-made, where I was not only a personal trainer, but then I became part of corporate, director of education, facility manager. I was also the acting vice president. And then I moved to Dallas, Texas, took over a franchise. I became a franchise owner. And then shortly after I became a franchise owner, a few years later, I became the CEO of the whole company of franchising.
Wow.
And I did that for a year. And then I left that company, and now I own a CEO and founder and owner of Manifest Fitness Institute and Manifest Dallas. Manifest Fitness Institute is the education side. Manifest Dallas is the private training facility attached to the classroom institution. And I also, during this time, have opened up a software company called Rosen Connect. I have my program called Exec Wellness, which is another business, corporate wellness programs. And then lastly, I also have my speaking engagements. So I do a lot of speaking engagements. I do leadership consulting, business consulting, and things of that nature. So I've done it all, have my own podcast at one time, and we put that on hold this year to kind of grow and scale Manifest Fitness Institute. But yeah, it's been fun, nice ride. So here we are. What is it? 7 or 8 years, I think now. It's 8 years, almost 9 years past retirement. June 9th will be 9 years since I retired from the military. So
wow, yeah. Just a couple of like side notes. So I don't have a military background myself. My dad did a couple of years in the Army, and my brother, two of my brothers-in-law were military. But I'm in a military town here, heavy. So we're in Fort Campbell, if you're familiar. It's a really big military city, and I never seen anything like it because I moved here. And my neighbor, he's this guy, he's like totally jacked, he's younger, he looks younger than me. And I'm talking to his wife, when we first moved in, and she's like, yeah, my husband's retired. Where I'm from, if you're retired, like you don't look like you or like some of these other guys, you're retired. You look like my dad did or my grandfather did, right? And it's like it's just such a culture difference here where it's like guys are retired and they're just like, I'm like, man, you're just getting started. You have a whole nother career in you, which is really cool. And I know a lot of them struggle with that. Like, what do I do now? This is all I know. It's uncomfortable, and a lot of them obviously have dealt with some really difficult things. So it's really cool. You're just inspiring with that.
Thank you. Yeah. I also I left out my personal side. So I've got 4 kids, 29, 27, 26, and 21. And I have 2 grandkids, 6 years old and 5 years old. So I am a full-blown grandpa.
Well, the couple of things that came up when you were talking, and this might throw you for a little bit of a loop, and that's, we talked about figuring it out, and we definitely can get into that. But one thing I think about is a little bit of mindset. We all have different perspectives and different frameworks and maybe even slightly different thoughts on things. But at the end of the day, I don't think, one guy did try to argue this one time, and I'm like, I don't think we can argue the fact that we all have limitations. Now hear me out. Like it could sound like I'm being negative, like, oh, we're limited and we can only do a certain amount. What I mean is like literal things that we're limited with. Like, for example, no matter how you slice it, you have 4 children, 2 grandchildren. I have 4 children, 0 grandchildren for now. But that changes things, right? Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, I'm home for dinner. That means that by definition, I can't also be working on my business during that period of time. Mm-hmm. And here you were at 17, and I can only imagine like how much pressure that is to have a child, to just be getting started with your own life, to obviously not knowing what you're doing. You don't know. I don't know what I'm doing now, let alone decades ago. And yeah, talk about figuring stuff out. Yeah. But it sounds like I'm sure you didn't have a perfect journey. None of us did. But it sounds like, because a lot of people, there are things that happen and they're limited, right? Like, man, I'm 17. I got a kid. What am I going to do? But I'm wondering how that was for you, and like how you saw that limit. Again, I know that's like a word that might mean different things to different people, but I guess my main point is that it can be used as, I don't know if excuse is the right word, because it's a valid thing that you have to deal with, versus there's some good in this somewhere. There's a lot of good in it in somewhere, but using that more in a positive way when it could be something that holds someone back.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about, because I think a lot of people, what happens is that they get into situations, obstacles, challenges, anything that life, things that happen, and life crisis, and they fold. Or they feel as if there's nothing else I can do. This is it. This is the end of the road. Listen, one thing I've learned in life is that every situation and every problem that exists, there's a solution. Mm-hmm. Every single one. And you're not the first person that dealt with this particular situation. There is many people that have dealt with the same situation you're dealing with and have thrived and have won, or have come out on the opposite end. So why not seek that information? So when I 17 years old, found out I was gonna be a dad, and or not found out, I actually was a dad, and I became, a father to a special needs child. There, go ahead.
It's like double. It's like double, right? It's hard. It'd be really hard to have a child at that point, and
I
then
mean, I was immature too. I was 17. Like
yeah,
I was a knucklehead too. I was
yeah.
the wild one. A lot of people who knew me back then, and they see me now or they talk to me now, they're just like, wow, it's like night and day. The person who we remember at a young age in comparison to who you are today. And and I always tell them, I was like, well, that's called evolution. It's like if I was
Yeah,
to say the same way, there's a problem.
yeah.
Evolution is everything. And but I understand those struggles. And I had mentioned to you my first fitfo moment. So fitfo is the mindset that I always talk about, fitfo mindset, which is figure it the F out. The reason for that is because every single day, every problem that exists, I just say, all right, I have my little moment to vent, my little moment to complain, and then I say, okay, it's time to fitfo. And I keep that mindset because that's what keeps me going, and that's what keeps me progressing, moving forward. Being 8 years old and moving to Mesa, Arizona, to the suburbs, coming from the projects in the Bronx, was a culture shift. Funny story is, Billy, 3 days ago, what was it? Thursday. Last Thursday, I spoke to my very first friend that I met in Mesa,
Wow.
Arizona at 8 years old.
Oh my God.
And here we are, he'll be 48 here in July. I'm 48 in December. And we don't talk as often, but we do talk periodically. And here we are, talking, and I haven't talked to him in a few years. And it's amazing his life and where he went, and then me and where I went. Both very successful, both have beautiful families. But we kicked off like it was like we was 8 years old all over again.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
cool.
And it was funny because there's a lot of things he didn't know about me that we got to talk about, and I was expressing to him, yeah, I had a hard time, because I was the most dark-skinned person in my neighborhood. And that's not easy, walking into a neighborhood that's, predominantly white. And I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Hispanic. A lot of them didn't even know what that was. And so, it was hard for a little kid to make friends, but we made it through, and to this day, we're still talking, and it was great to catch up with him. You're talking 40 years, 40 years,
Wow.
you know?
Man, yeah, I'm curious about a couple things there. That's really cool to reconnect with that, and just like no time has passed in some ways, but in other ways, you had a lot of filling in to do. The couple things that came up were you mentioned that when you go through something difficult, you know that you're not the first person. Sometimes we feel like that, right? And sometimes it's something that's not even that big of a deal, right? It's like your thing was a big life moment, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, a client leaves or a staff member leaves, and we're like, oh my gosh, my world is crumbling. But even if it's a bigger thing, right? It could be, man, people deal with stuff, man. It could be a diagnosis. It could be, yeah, that phone call you don't want to hear. I mean, there's so many things. What advice would you give people from an intentionality standpoint? I like what you said because I'm going to get to this as well. There are real difficulties, and we don't want to discredit that. Like
No, no, no. We're
these
not
people that are
minimizing
like,
it.
yeah, these people that are like overly positive. Like, I don't know, like my mom died, and they're like, so what? Like, keep moving forward. It's like, no, that's like completely unhealthy, right? But how do you reconcile that with moving forward? Like, do you actively look for people to mentor you or to guide you through those moments? Do you read books? What do you actually do with that? Is it just kind of natural?
Oh no, that's a great question, and yes, you are absolutely right. I want to make sure that I stress that it's not minimizing people's problems to say, it's not that big of a deal. But what it is saying is that every issue people have dealt with, somebody out there dealt with it, even the hardest things. So, I always say, well, how did they take care of it? How did they, and maybe seek those people, right? I also have a small, unit of people that I can
Nice.
call up and say, hey, I'm going through it, and I am going to shake something. I need you to help me out. And those people, believe it or not, I don't welcome sympathy, and I don't welcome softness. I welcome hard. I welcome
Truth.
aggressive. I
Yeah.
welcome, hey, get your head out of your rear end, buddy. Got stuff to do, but also with a purpose. So it's not something to demean me or to, emasculate me or to, disrespect me, but it is definitely something to say, hey, I understand you're going through it. I can see where you're at, but it's time to move forward. Like we need you to get your head, in the right place. And I have those people that I can reach out to, and I love it. I mean, even my wife. I remember. I give a prime example. I give a quick story. I first got here to Dallas. One of my biggest things. This is why I talk about culture building. Is one of my biggest things that I had to deal with was rebuilding the culture in this facility because it was already existing, but it was a failing franchise, and the culture was just completely trash. And I had to come in and, I had to set standards. I had to set in discipline. I had to enforce regulations. And, that's not fun. You're not the liked person. Nobody likes you when you're doing that. So I had to come in and I had to take care of all that. Now I'm used to it because I was in the military, so it wasn't hard for me to do. And I don't really care if people like me or not. I'd rather gain respect than to get So with that, I had an issue with one of the trainers here in the facility who decided to take some of my words that I had mentioned to them and in a one-on-one conversation and twist it to the public, to the rest of the trainers in the facility, and it completely shattered my forward momentum with trying to rebuild culture and unity and cohesion, and it became this big split like out of nowhere. It was so quick. I thought everybody was getting together and it seemed to be really good, and this dude just chimed in during a meeting and it just completely split down the middle. You had those that were with me and those that were not with me. And I remember going home and I had worked so hard to try to build this culture, and I go home and I walked in and my wife looked at me, she said, "You're okay?" And I didn't even say anything to her. I walked into the room, I sat on my bed, and I was sitting at the edge of the bed, and I'm not a crier. And I cried that day. And those tears started coming out. It was tears of frustration, tears of anger. I was just massively upset. And she came in and she was like, "Whoa, what's going on? Like, what's up?" Because she's not used to seeing me like that. And I said, "I've tried so hard, and this dude just came in with his negative mentality, and he just completely just trampled everything I've been working hard for. And now I don't know how I'm gonna get this going. I don't know how." And I was kind of in a uproar. And she put her hand on my shoulder and she looked at me and she says, "One thing I know about you." And I said, "What?" And she's like, "You're Mark. You make it happen."
Nice.
And I just looked at her and she's like, "So get up, wipe your face, and come up with a plan because I know that's you." And I looked at her. I didn't get a hug. I didn't get a kiss. I didn't get an "oh baby, come here." I didn't get none of that. I got get up, wipe your face, and come up with a plan. And I did just that. Funny is the way I actually combated that situation was I called the individual the next day and I said, "Hey, do you have a training session opened any of your times?" And he said, "Yeah, I have a training." I said, I'll pay you. I want to be one of your clients." And he's like, "You serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious. I want to get trained." He said, "But didn't we just have an altercation?" I was like, "I'm over that. It's water under the bridge. I heard you out. We're good. Let's move forward."
Wow.
And I trained with him in front of everybody. So everybody was like, "This guy is crazy."
Yeah. But I think I get where you're going.
And so when they saw that happen, they were like, "Oh, so he's not somebody who's going to take something personal and start crazy. He's just going to be professional about it. He's going to keep moving."
Says a lot. You're about to be ready to move on.
That's my mentality when it comes to you have an issue that it could crumble all your work and everything you work hard for. But there's a solution. And I'm not saying to not cry. I'm not saying to not let some anger out. But at the end of the day, you still got to come up with a solution. And I did. And right now, currently, I have in my facility, I have 53 trainers in my facility. 43 of them have been with me a year or more.
Wow.
9 of them have been with me for 6 years.
Yeah.
I can say my retention is pretty well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely gonna learn some of those secrets there. But I love how
Yeah.
your wife encouraged you in that moment. And there's a lot of trust there with the marriage and your relationship. So her saying that really, I mean, it impacted me, right? Just hearing it. So I can imagine what that did for you. I can relate. I've had similar things happen. And yeah, sometimes you just need somebody to just encourage you in that way. The one thing I want to mention from before that I just think is interesting. I'm just going to throw out there is that a lot of times, like on the outside, when we look at people, and I guess I'll speak for myself, but I think we all do this to a certain extent, is you start thinking that people that are quote unquote successful, whatever that means, whatever our definition of that is, we start thinking that like they didn't have problems, right? Like they're just like, they're just like standing up there. And then I heard someone say, it was like a mentor of mine, he's like, people that are successful, they're just standing on a whole bunch of garbage. Like that's really what it is, right? They just have figured all of these things out over and over and over.
Yeah.
And the more I read and the more I talk to people, like, man, like, this guy lost a child and this person like, battled through cancer and like these huge problems. But they didn't necessarily minimize them. They never said it was easy. But it's not like there are people that have problems and there are people that don't. There's just different paths for everybody. So it just jumped out to me before when you were talking about some of the stuff you dealt with, and I'm sure you left out a lot of your issues as well, as we all have full lives.
We don't
right?
have enough time, Billy.
Yeah.
Like if I sat here and told you about all the strifes and all the craziness that went on in this place since I've been here, and even with the other businesses, and whether it was self-made or we'd be here. Today.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that when you have a plan and you have a mindset for the plan, no problems that exist will stop you.
I love it.
And that plan is solid. It's been solid. I know exactly where I'm going. I know where my team is going. I know what I want as far as projections is concerned. And so when the problems exist, I know, hey, you got to make adjustments. I walked in today. I'm not kidding you. I walked in today. And when I pulled open my front door, because we're in an industrial, place, I pulled open my front door and I looked up and one of the screws had popped up on the top, thing. So now the door was kind of shaky. And I'm just like, I look at my facility manager and he was like, did that just happen? I'm like, I don't know, but I just walked in and this door is shaky. So it's got to get fixed. Let's call up my maintenance guy. He's like, I'm on it, boss. I'll be there in a minute. No big deal. Did I lose my mind? No. I walked in. One of the trainers, hey, Marc, you got a second? Yeah, come on, talk to me now because I'm in the middle of stuff. Hey, I got an issue with another trainer. This situation just happened. What do you think I should do about it? And I gave him my advice about being professional and by the way, don't address it today. Take some time. Come back to it tomorrow. Have a clear mindset. This is what I think you should say, and go from there. And he's like, got it, appreciate it, thank you. He walks out. Then I got another one. Hey, so-and-so just did a social media post that I don't think you're going to like. Okay, I'll take a look at it. All right, I'll talk to that person as well. And then I had to go pay my rent because my landlord only takes written check. So I had to meet up with him, go across the street. And then I got to be on this podcast. That's just in a matter of an hour.
He's like, I'm on this podcast with this guy, and he didn't even send me a link. Like, what's going on here? He's like, nah. He's like, I'll figure that out. He's like, I'm gonna text him right now and threaten him for the link. Leadership is such a broad topic, and you bring so much experience, and we definitely don't want to let this time slip without talking about some of it. The one thing that I think about when you share those stories is, it kind of goes back to something I said previously, that we all have these we can call them limits or whatever we want to, but one of my other mentors says you can't give what you don't possess. And what he means by that is that we have to, some people call it like leading yourself, self-leadership, taking care of yourself. I couldn't possibly imagine a human being able to deal with just those short things you listed without being at a certain place themselves. And that doesn't just happen on its own. There has to be something being poured into you, something you're doing for you to have the capacity to do those things. So I'm curious of your thoughts on that. I'm assuming you agree with like leading yourself, but what kind of like practices or just maybe it's mindsets that you take on that might help us?
Well, number one is that in order for you to tell somebody what to do, you need to have the knowledge of what you're telling them. Does that mean you do it yourself during the time that you're telling somebody else to do it? No, that doesn't. But it also means that you have experience to be able to guide them. So for instance, I just recently reached out to people to start training clients again. Don't ask me like, Mark, what are you thinking? And I'm like, well, you know what? I want to show people that I still can train. I trained people for years. I had a ton of clients, whether online or in person, and I enjoyed it. And I want to have a couple. I don't want a full schedule. I'm going to have a couple, and I'm also speaking at the Men's Over 40 Health Summit here in June. So I'm like, well, this is an opportune time for me to take on people over 40 that want to train with me, whether in person or online. And I can showcase my skills to the other trainers, not only here, but then also in the future, for anybody that's out there that, I want to franchise Manifest so people can see, hey, I'm doing it. So if you talk about what I do, I'm a big person on leading by example. So I lead by example. That makes me happy. Now, if you're asking me what I do for myself, so to speak, that's a hard question. I'm going to be honest with you. I hired a coach to actually train me. He's one of the trainers in my facility. And this isn't the first time I've hired a coach here in my facility. And I told him, I said, listen, I need accountability. I need you to, and believe it or not, it's not going to take much. But it's just knowing there's somebody out there that's looking to see if I worked out or not. I'm like, okay, because you miss workouts, you get busy and all that. But I've been staying on top of it because I know he's watching, and so because he's watching, I'm like, man, I got to get my workout in. That's like right now, even sitting here, I got my 2 shakes ready for my workout. As soon as I'm done with this podcast, walk outside, get it in. You see what I'm saying? So it's. But he's not here. He's not training me. I just know that he's watching, and that's good enough for me. So that's how I help myself. I get a passion for people and their success, and that's what fuels me. When I offer somebody advice or guidance or mentorship, and they take it and they run with it, and it makes them successful somehow, some way. They get a new client. They make a good amount of money. They feel fulfilled, like, Mark, man, your advice just helped me through this problem. That's where I feel fulfilled. That's where Mark feels like Mark feels I self-fulfilled myself. If that makes sense. It's weird because it still involves other people, but that's just who I am. So, but I do like reading books. I love doing education. Education is everything. Master of your craft, warrior in business. That's my motto for Manifest, for everything. It's like, be a master of your craft and be a warrior in business.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, another thing that you jumped out, we don't need to spend a ton of time, but I just want to point out so it doesn't get lost, was when you were sharing about your vision, it sounded super believable. And the reason for that is because you believe it, and because you believe it, I believe it. That's contagious, right? So that's just a really good example of leadership that you probably didn't even notice. Was like, you're like, I know exactly where we're going, and we're going to figure it out, and this is just part of the journey. There's going to be problems. Like, that's really what people need, right? If they need somebody.
I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize. But that's what this whole thing is about. That's what Manifest is about. I have manifested everything in my life, everything, to include I know this is going to sound weird, but to include the genders of my children. I am not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. I knew when I found out that they were going to be, they were coming into this world. I was like, I'm having a boy, I'm having a girl, I'm having a boy, and I'm having a girl, and I knew it. But I tend to say things. So it literally just comes into manifestation because I refuse to think otherwise. So when you talk to me about, and let this be a lesson to leaders out there. If your team doesn't know the destination, they won't understand the journey.
No.
So if you can't tell them the destination, even if it's years apart from now, they won't understand the journey and they won't work as hard. They'll work hard. But imagine if they actually knew that end state goal and how hard they work. I'll give you an example. My facility manager, I already told him, I'm not doing this gym operation thing forever. I'll tell you that right now. So when I decide to exit, you're going to be the owner of this place. And he's like, I love it. That's exactly what so I've been mentoring him and guiding him to be an owner, not just to be a facility manager, but to actually be the owner of this place. Like, you need to set the standard.
Yeah.
And what's funny is because he understands the end state, this morning he sent out a message to everybody, to all the trainers, to everything. He said, hey, I appreciate everybody. I just want to say, have a great, May or month of May, but there's some places we need to tidy up at. We need to clean up after ourselves, please. Make sure that you're putting your stuff away. Make sure your clients are within close vicinity of yourselves. And if you have any questions, I'm available. Please come let me know. And he did it all.
Leadership.
He was initiative, but he understands the destination.
Yeah, it's key. I just recorded another podcast earlier today, and one of the things I said was almost everything we do, all of our choices will be completely dictated by where we're going or where we think we're going, right? If I set a goal to make $50,000, I'm going to do things that are going to help me lead towards making $50,000, right? If I make a goal towards making 10 or 20 times that, then I'm going to make decisions based on that. I'm going to take different clients. I'm going to charge different rates. I'm going to do different things with my time. So that's why it's so important. And it also just reminds me of a lot of people listening are family men and women, right? Same thing. Like if your kids don't know where they're going, what your family's about, like just like anything will work, right? Because there's no clear destination. They don't know where they're going. They don't have the identity they need.
You know how important it is for the spouses to be able to tell the other spouse what, especially in career advancement. My wife right now is in her doctorate, and I know her doctorate program. I know where she's going with her doctorate program because we discussed it in full length. So I can help out, make sure that she gets that doctorate so she can move to that next step. But the same and vice versa is like she understands where the business is going. She understands what we're planning on doing. So she also can contribute to me through my personal life to allow me to get my professional goals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Good stuff. The last piece I think we'll touch on and be sensitive to your workout and everybody's time. The issue of accountability, and I can go on, but I'll save all my thoughts. Curious what healthy accountability looks like in action, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it makes perfect sense. And I will tell you this. Your leadership needs to be flexible. And some people may disagree with me on this. And the reason why I say that is you need to adapt to the people you're leading. There's a lot of studies out there about whether employees or whether, they got all these different testing of mindsets, of different work ethic, of different all those things. Like everybody works differently, right? And there's all that. So your leadership has to be flexible to the people and adaptive to the people that you're leading. You can still be stern and aggressive. That's fine if that's how I am. But you can also understand that yelling at somebody and in this tone doesn't necessarily reach, everybody. You may need to scale it back and say, listen, we need to talk. And you might have to scale your tone down. And believe it or not, the same message can get applied. So the reason why I bring that up is because accountability and what it looks like to me is being able to adjust your leadership to hold people accountable, but to where they understand.
Nice. Because
you don't want it to be turned off by, the message and the way it's being communicated. Yeah. And I think a lot of, especially young leaders, and even some, I take that back, even some that are like really set in their ways and they're like, well, this is the way I am. And it's like, well, you're not gonna get people to understand. And I've seen and I've heard of gym owners especially that, they lead with an iron fist and the culture is bad. Now I could walk into my facility right now and I can see somebody doing something and I can say, hey, you got a second? Let me talk to you real quick. And they'll say, well, hey, what's up, Mark? I was like, there's even been some where I'll whisper in their ear. I'll be like, hey, what are you doing? You know better. Yeah. And they'll look at me and I'm like, you know better. And they're like, I'm sorry, Mark. Yeah. And that's it. And that was the end of the conversation. And then those individuals will come to me later and be like, hey, I apologize. We're good. You already corrected the problem. And then there's been some where, have gotten the attitude as, of course, came back towards me. And I expressed to them, hey, look, maybe our business model don't match. Maybe you want more freedom to do whatever you want to do and you need to go buy your own gym. I totally respect that, but you're not going to do what you're doing right now in my facility. So you make the call. And a lot of them will be like, whoa. And here's the thing, I wasn't rude, I wasn't disrespectful, but I was holding them accountable still. And I was letting them know there's a standard, and either you're going to meet that standard, or you can go somewhere else. It's perfectly fine. And I think
Yeah.
the reason why people respect the way I hold people accountable is because I will never disrespect somebody unless you really push that button. If you push
Yeah.
that button, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? But for the most part, it's like I'm going to respect you as a grown adult, but I'm going to hold you accountable. And let's real quick talk about holding people accountable for the good stuff. So my team, I'll ask them, hey, what was the next educational thing you've signed up for? And you'll get the, uh-oh. And I'm like, oh, it's been a while, huh? So you have a week to sign up for something. I don't care what it is. Sign up for something that's gonna take your education to the next level. It could be a course, it could be a webinar, it could be, I don't care. And bring it to me. That's holding people accountable.
Yeah.
But it's good for them because they get to use that education for their careers. They get to
Yeah.
use that education for them. So they're still winning.
Yeah, there's two big things that jump out to me, and then we'll wrap with the final questions. One is it's mind blowing how much the workplace leadership mirrors personal life and family leadership, because so much of what you said applies to leadership in the home. You can have the iron fist, and yeah, that has its place, but at the end of the day, it's like you want people doing the quote unquote right thing because it's who they are, and that comes out of leadership that cares, and leadership that guides, and leadership that corrects and isn't soft. But that was the other piece, was both those examples you gave, the guy you whispered in the ear and the one about the education. What I got out of both of those was that this guy cares. Because one was a little more direct, like, hey, we don't do that, and what are you doing, and you know better. And that's kind of, yeah, you could say that's like direct, but you're not doing that to me if you don't care about me. Because why else would you whisper in my ear? It's because you care. And then why would you care about my education? It's because you care about me. So there's a lot of margin for grace when I know this person cares about me and my well-being, and they're looking out for my best interest. So that's really, really powerful stuff.
Leaders need to care. If you care about yourself, and that's all you're concerned about, then you're not a leader. In my opinion. In my opinion, if that's the only thing you care about is yourself, I mean, I get it. We all have our own self goals. I understand.
Yeah.
And nobody's negating that, and nobody's telling you to get rid of that. But if you don't have a concern about the welfare and the progression of your people, then you're missing the mark as a leader.
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, you should be training those people, anybody, it doesn't matter who it is, to surpass you. You should be training them to take your place at one day. You should be guiding them to, hey, you know what? Like, I had one of my trainers left my facility and went and opened up her own gym, and I was ecstatic for her.
Yeah.
Because she's like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this gym. But the thing is now she could reach out and say, Mark, I'm having some, issues with the gym. What do you think about this? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. Do this, do that. But does she work directly for me anymore? No. But I was able to help her to get her to now where she owns her own gym and running her own facility, it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. All right. Before we wrap up with these questions, what's the best place for people to find you? They want more information. They want to see what you're up to, follow you, all that stuff.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Rodriguez Marc 01. If you type that in, you can find me with that. Or you can find me on Instagram at justrod, JUSTROD, one word, _, enterprises. You can find me either one of those. That's probably the best places to find me. I do TikTok and I do Facebook, but those are my Instagram and LinkedIn is where I'm at.
Yeah, I encourage you to follow Marc. He's definitely a great follow. He's got a lot of great motivation. I love it because you're motivational, but you're not just motivational. It's motivational, but it's also the tools and the principles that actually work. So it's really good stuff.
I like to consider myself a realistic motivator.
And
the reason why I say that is because I speak from real life scenarios. It's not the fluffy stuff you're going to read in books or that people kind of regurgitate. This is,
Yeah.
as you notice, with every piece of what I'm saying, I have a story that
Yeah.
aligns.
It's examples. Yeah.
It's like, and that's where I speak from. I speak from real life relevance. So I think that's a. I'm not gonna say that's what makes me different from everybody else, but it is what makes me unique.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. You mentioned that you like to read. What's either like one of the most impactful books you've read, or maybe just a book you'd recommend for people checking this out?
Woo! Which ones? Okay, so
Yeah, that's tough.
if we go into business, I'll always throw out Alex Hermosi. If you're a business owner and you haven't read $100 million offers or $100 million leads or $100 million money models, definitely go get that book. If you're any business, doesn't matter fitness or anything, if you don't have those 3 books on your shelves, you're missing out because I believe
Nice.
those are clear blueprints of how you can run a business, and it's pretty phenomenal. The Science of Scaling is another one.
Nice.
Dr. Benjamin Hardy. That is a phenomenal book. It talks about impossible goals and impossible timelines. Making those goals. Hey, there you go, right there. You know it. You want to talk about manifestation, and to be able to take a 10-year goal and make it in 3 years,
Yeah.
and just say, you know what, we're going to do it in 3 years, and frame it that way, man. That book right there. That was
Just,
very.
just real quick, I love that, and I just took something from that on a smaller scale because you could do it small scale or big scale. Was you and I are both presenters, and oftentimes presenters start 5 months out, right? It's normal, right? It's like, hey, I got this talk, I start thinking about it, create my outline, and then I have timelines. Like I want to have this done and all you really do is you just dilly dally until it gets real, right? So I decided, why don't I just take that whole thing and shrink it and just say, I'm going to have this done like way sooner so that I can, just get it done sooner, have more time for other stuff, feel better about it. So yeah.
Yeah, those right now are the books that, and I'll go back. Another book that's really good if you're trying to figure out where you fit as far as a leader in the entrepreneur world. I am a big fan of Leadership, Dave Ramsey's book. People have their feelings on Dave Ramsey, but that book is phenomenal.
It is really good.
Yeah, so Leadership is a great book. So those are some of the books that I would recommend. It's funny you say that. I just signed my contract to speak at the Can FitPro, the Canadian Global Conference.
Nice.
And they said I needed to have a presentation. I'm not going to be speaking on now. I'm speaking at another event, Coach 360 in Las Vegas, a few weeks prior, and I'm like, okay, no big deal. But I got four presentations that I could choose from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you talk about being prepared, 7 P's will always go a long way. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Yeah, there you go. So, so that's kind of what I'll be doing here coming up, and I'm excited. This year is a really good year. So, but I appreciate you, Billy. Thank you for having me on this podcast. It's been a great conversation, and
it has.
Whenever you need me again, let me know.
You got it, Mark. Thanks so much for being with us. We're all better for hearing all of these valuable lessons and insights. And wishing you nothing but massive success.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.